The wedding dress was on fire. Not metaphorically. Literally. Actual flames were consuming the $3,000 Vera Wang gown that hung in the window of Bridal Bliss Boutique, while Alora Mitchell stood on the sidewalk holding a smoking flare gun, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. "Well," she said to nobody in particular, "that's not how I imagined starting my Tuesday." The boutique owner, Mrs. Henderson, came running out with a fire extinguisher, screaming something about insurance and lawsuits. But Alora wasn't listening. She was too busy staring at the note that had been tied to the flare gun. "This could be your car next. The Blackwoods." "Subtle," Alora muttered, dropping the flare gun into a nearby trash can. "Real subtle, guys." Her phone buzzed. "Dad. Alora, where the hell are you? Get to the office now." "Dad, I'm kinda busy watching a wedding dress burn." "Also, did you know the Blackwoods have graduated from loan sharks to arsonists?" "Just get here." 20 minutes later, Alora burst into her father's office to find him sitting upside down in his chair, feet in the air, breathing into a paper bag. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Yoga breathing." Roberto Mitchell gasped between breaths. "My therapist says it helps with anxiety attacks." "You don't have a therapist." "I do now. Dr. YouTube. Very affordable." Alora grabbed the bag from his hands and helped him sit upright. "Okay, Spill. What's going on? And why are the Blackwoods sending flaming wedding dresses as morning greetings?" Roberto ran his hands through his already messy hair. "Remember when I told you business was just a little tight?" "Yeah? Well, I may have understated the situation by about $4 million. Alora blinked. $4 million? Dad, our company isn't even worth $4 million. That's the problem." Before Alora could respond, the office door swung open without a knock. A woman in a perfectly tailored black suit walked in, followed by two men who looked like they bench-pressed refrigerators for fun. "Mr. Mitchell," the woman said with a smile that could freeze hell. "I'm Victoria Blackwood, legal counsel for Blackwood Enterprises. We need to chat." "Legal counsel?" Alora stood up. "Since when do construction companies need lawyers who look like they eat souls for breakfast?" Victoria's smile widened. "Since they started dealing with clients who can't pay their bills. You must be Alora. I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope." "Actually, yes. Your college GPA, your marketing degree, your complete dating history from the past 3 years." Victoria consulted a tablet. "Impressive how you managed to avoid commitment with 17 different men." "That's almost artistic." "Excuse me, what?" Alora's voice went up an octave. "Did you just say you stalked my dating life?" "Research," Victoria corrected. "Very thorough research. Which brings me to our proposal." Roberto groaned. "Here we go. Your father owes us $4 million. We're prepared to forgive that debt entirely, plus provide a substantial bonus in exchange for a simple business arrangement." "Let me guess," Alora said dryly. "You want me to marry someone?" Victoria looked genuinely surprised. "How did you—" "Lucky guess. Also, the burning wedding dress was a pretty big hint." "Ah, yes, that was Chase's idea. He has a flair for the dramatic." "Chase?" "Chase Blackwood, your future husband, if you accept our offer." Alora laughed. Actually laughed. "Lady, I don't know what kind of medieval arranged marriage fantasy you're living in, but this is 2025. I'm not marrying some random guy to pay off my dad's gambling debts." "They weren't gambling debts," Roberto mumbled. "What were they then?" "Poker debts." "Dad, that's literally the same thing." Victoria cleared her throat. "Actually, they were business loans, high-interest business loans for a construction project that didn't pan out." "You mean the Miami Beach condos that are now sitting at the bottom of the ocean?" Alora asked. "Hurricane season is unpredictable," Roberto said weakly. "The marriage would be purely contractual," Victoria continued smoothly. 1 year. You maintain separate residences, live your own lives, and at the end of 12 months, you get an amicable divorce and a very generous settlement. And what does Chase get out of this arrangement? A wife. His grandfather's will stipulates that he must be married by his 30th birthday to inherit the family business. That birthday is in 6 months. Alora processed this information. So he's desperate too. Desperate is such an ugly word. Let's say motivated. And what happens if I say no? Victoria glanced at the window where smoke was still rising from the boutique across the street. Well, let's just say Chase has a lot of flare guns and a very creative imagination. Is that a threat? It's a fact. The man once sent a mariachi band to sing breakup songs outside his ex-girlfriend's office for 3 weeks straight. He doesn't give up easily. Alora looked at her father, who was back to breathing into the paper bag. She looked at Victoria, who was examining her manicure with suspicious innocence. She looked at the 2 human refrigerators, who were probably wondering if they'd fit through the window. I need to think about this. Of course, you have until tomorrow at noon. And if I want to meet this Chase person before I agree to legally bind myself to him? Victoria smiled, a real smile this time. I was hoping you'd ask. He's downstairs in the lobby. He's here. He wanted to make a good first impression. Alora walked to the window and looked down at the street. There, leaning against a bright red Ferrari, was a man in jeans and a black t-shirt, juggling what appeared to be 3 flaming torches while a small crowd gathered to watch. Is he seriously juggling fire in front of my building? I told you he was dramatic. Alora watched as Chase caught all 3 torches, extinguished them with a flourish, and took a bow. The crowd applauded. He looked up at her window and waved. Oh my God, she whispered. He's completely insane. But very rich, Victoria added helpfully. And handsome, Roberto chimed in, apparently recovered from his panic attack. Dad? What? I'm just saying, if you're going to have a fake marriage, at least make it with someone easy on the eyes. Alora turned back to Victoria. 1 year? 1 year. Separate residences? Completely separate. And he's not a serial killer or anything? Well, he did kill a houseplant once, but that was clearly an accident. Despite everything, Alora found herself smiling. Fine, I'll meet him, but I'm not promising anything. Excellent. Shall we go down? As they walked toward the elevator, Alora couldn't help but wonder if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But then she thought about her father's company, her family's legacy, and the fact that she was apparently going to meet a man who thought fire juggling was an appropriate first impression. This is either going to be the best year of my life, she muttered, or the most expensive therapy I'll ever need. The elevator doors opened, and Victoria gestured for her to step inside. Why not both? Victoria said with a grin. The elevator ride down was the longest 20 seconds of Alora's life. Quick question, she said as the floors ticked by. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that your boss is going to propose to me with a flaming sword or something equally dramatic? Victoria checked her phone. Well, he did ask me to clear his schedule for the rest of the day and mentioned something about going big or going home. That's not a number. That's about an 8. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to reveal the lobby of Mitchell Construction. Through the glass windows, Alora could see Chase Blackwood had upgraded from fire juggling to... Was that a mariachi band? Oh, come on, Alora groaned as the sound of La Bamba drifted through the building. Seriously? He's very thorough, Victoria said, walking toward the exit. When he sets his mind to something, he loses his mind completely? I was going to say commits fully, but your version works too. They pushed through the doors, and Alora got her first close-up look at Chase Blackwood. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it, and the kind of smile that probably got him out of traffic tickets. He was conducting the mariachi band with what appeared to be a pool noodle. Alora Mitchell, he called out, spotting her immediately. The woman who's about to save my inheritance and my sanity. In that order? She called back. Definitely in that order. Sanity's been gone for years. The mariachi band finished their song with a flourish, and Chase handed each of them a $100 bill. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. Feel free to stick around. I might need you for the finale. There's a finale? Alora asked, as the band wandered off to get churros from a nearby food truck. There's always a finale. Chase walked over, extending his hand. Chase Blackwood, professional disappointment to my family and part-time fire hazard. Alora shook his hand, surprised by how warm it was. Alora Mitchell, professional skeptic and full-time person who doesn't make life decisions based on burning wedding dresses. About that, Chase said, not letting go of her hand. I may have gotten a little carried away with the dramatic gestures. Victoria said you needed convincing, and I'm not great at subtle. You think? I once hired a skywriter to ask a girl to prom. Turns out she was afraid of planes. Did it work? She transferred schools. Despite herself, Alora laughed. Okay, that's actually kind of impressive. In a completely terrifying way. That's my specialty. Chase finally released her hand. So, want to grab coffee and discuss our impending fake marriage like civilized adults? Can we go somewhere without mariachi bands? I make no promises. 10 minutes later, they were sitting in a small cafe 3 blocks away. Chase had ordered a triple espresso and was drumming his fingers on the table with nervous energy. Alora had ordered a latte and was studying him like he was a particularly interesting bug. So, she said finally, give me the real story. Why do you need to get married so badly that you're willing to marry a complete stranger? Chase stopped drumming. You want the truth? Novel concept, I know. My grandfather built Blackwood Enterprises from nothing, started with a single construction crew and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar empire. When he died, he left everything to me, but with one condition. I had to be married by my 30th birthday. Why? Because he thought I was irresponsible, a playboy, someone who couldn't commit to anything. Chase's voice got quieter, and he wasn't wrong. What's changed? I realized I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to build something meaningful, not just coast on my family's money. But to do that, I need control of the company. Alora sipped her latte. And your family won't just give it to you? My cousin Derek is next in line. He's been waiting for me to fail for years. If I don't meet the marriage requirement, he gets everything. And Derek is the kind of person who would turn our construction company into a slumlord operation within 6 months. He's already started making deals with some very questionable people. So you need to get married to save your company from your evil cousin. When you put it like that, it sounds like a fairy tale. A really weird fairy tale. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Chase leaned forward. Your turn. What's the real reason you're even considering this insane proposal? Alora set down her cup. My dad built his company with his bare hands. Worked 18-hour days, missed birthdays and baseball games, gave up everything to build something he could pass down to me. And I can't let it die because he made one stupid mistake. What happened? He trusted the wrong people. Took out loans he couldn't afford for a project that was doomed from the start. Now the company that's been in our family for 3 generations is going to disappear unless She gestured vaguely. Unless I marry a stranger who juggles fire for fun. Hey, that's a valuable skill set. Is it though? You'd be surprised how often fire juggling comes in handy in business negotiations. Alora found herself smiling again. You're completely insane. Probably, but I'm also serious about this arrangement. 1 year, separate lives, and then we both get what we need. And what happens if we can't stand each other? Then we'll be the most convincing fake married couple in history. Pure hatred is very easy to mistake for passion. You've thought about this. I've thought about everything. The contract, the living arrangements, the public appearances we'll need to make. I've even thought about what we'll tell people when we get divorced. What will we tell them? That we realized we were better as friends. Think we'll be friends? Chase considered this. I think we might be. You're not at all what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would be impressed by fire juggling. Sorry to disappoint. You didn't. You're much more interesting than someone who would be impressed by cheap tricks. Alora felt something flutter in her chest, something that felt dangerously close to actual attraction, which was ridiculous. This was a business arrangement, a marriage of convenience. She was not going to develop feelings for a man who thought mariachi bands were appropriate first-date entertainment. "So," she said, trying to sound businesslike, "what are the terms?" Chase pulled out his phone and opened a document. "I've had my lawyers draw up a preliminary agreement. We maintain separate residences, separate bank accounts, separate lives. We attend family functions together, make public appearances as needed, and present a united front to the media." "Media?" "The Blackwood family is high profile. Our engagement will probably make the society pages." "Great. I've always wanted to be tabloid fodder. We'll hire a publicist, someone who can control the narrative. And after a year, quiet divorce. You get a settlement that will more than cover your father's debts, plus enough to expand Mitchell Construction into whatever you want it to be. And you get your inheritance. And you get your freedom." Alora looked at the contract on his phone. It was detailed, professional, and completely insane. "This is crazy. Completely. I can't believe I'm considering this." "But you are considering it." She was. Despite every rational thought in her head, despite the voice that sounded suspiciously like her mother telling her this was a terrible idea, she was actually considering marrying this beautiful, crazy man to save her family's company. "I need some ground rules," she said finally. "Name them. No more burning things. No more mariachi bands. No more dramatic gestures that might get us arrested. Deal. And we need to get to know each other. If we're going to convince people we're actually married, we need to know basic facts about each other." "Like what?" "Like your favorite color, your biggest fear, what you wanted to be when you grew up." "Blue, commitment, and a professional wrestler." "A professional wrestler?" "I was 7. The Rock was my hero. And now? Now I juggle fire and arrange fake marriages with beautiful women I just met." "You think I'm beautiful?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, and Chase's easy smile turned into something warmer, more real. "I think you're the most interesting person I've met in years," he said. "And yeah, you're beautiful. But more importantly, you're smart enough to see through my ridiculous dramatics and still sit here having coffee with me. Maybe I'm just as crazy as you are. Maybe." "Is that a yes?" Alora looked around the cafe, at the normal people living their normal lives, making normal decisions. Then she looked at Chase, who was waiting for her answer with an expression that was equal parts hope and terror. "It's a yes," she said. "But I'm keeping the mariachi band's number, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case I need to make a dramatic exit from this arrangement." Chase laughed, a real laugh that made his whole face light up. "Deal. But I'm keeping the fire-juggling equipment." "Why?" "Because something tells me this year is going to be full of situations that require creative problem-solving." As they shook hands across the table, Alora couldn't help but think he was probably right. "I can't believe you talked me into this," Alora muttered, staring at her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror of Blackwood Tower's executive conference room. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than her car insurance, and Chase's grandmother's engagement ring, a rock so big it had its own gravitational pull. "I didn't talk you into anything," Chase said, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. "You agreed to this insanity all on your own. That was before I knew your family owned half of Miami and apparently every news station in Florida." Through the window, they could see the small army of reporters gathering outside the building. Word of their engagement had leaked exactly 3 hours after they'd signed the contract yesterday, and now the entire city seemed invested in their love story. "Remind me again why we couldn't just elope to Vegas like normal fake couples," Alora asked. "Because my family doesn't do normal," Chase replied. "They do spectacular and newsworthy, and guaranteed to be on the front page of Miami Society magazine." The conference room door burst open, and Victoria walked in, carrying what appeared to be a small mountain of paperwork. "All right, lovebirds," she announced. "Time for Fake Marriage 101. We have exactly 15 minutes before the press conference, so let's make this count." "Press conference?" Alora's voice cracked slightly. "Did I forget to mention that?" Chase winced. "My family wants to introduce you to the world. Think of it as coming out party for our relationship. I'm going to kill you. Not until after the inheritance clears." Victoria clapped her hands sharply. "Focus. First things first, your love story. The press is going to ask how you met, when you knew it was love, why you're getting married so quickly." "And we're supposed to say what exactly?" Alora asked. "That his family threatened to explode my car unless I agreed to marry him?" "We're going with whirlwind romance," Victoria said smoothly. "You met 6 months ago at a charity gala for children's hospitals. Chase was immediately smitten by your intelligence and beauty. You were charmed by his unique approach to philanthropy." "What unique approach?" "He donated a fire truck to the hospital and personally delivered it while juggling flaming batons." Alora turned to Chase. "Please tell me you didn't actually do that." "Okay, I won't tell you." "Oh my God. It was for a good cause, and the kids loved it." Victoria continued reading from her notes. "Your first date was a private picnic on his yacht, where he serenaded you with classical guitar." "You play guitar?" Alora asked. 3 chords, Chase admitted. "But I'm very enthusiastic about those 3 chords." "Your second date was a cooking class, where Chase accidentally set the kitchen on fire trying to make creme brulee." "Why is everything in our fake relationship on fire?" Alora demanded. "Because it's memorable," Victoria said. "And it explains why Chase always carries a fire extinguisher in his car." "You carry a fire extinguisher in your car?" "Safety first," Chase said with a grin. Victoria flipped to the next page. "He proposed last weekend during a hot air balloon ride over the Everglades. Very romantic, very private, very difficult for anyone to verify. And I said yes because despite his tendency toward pyrotechnics, you realized he was the most genuine, caring man you'd ever met." "That's actually not a lie," Alora said before she could stop herself. Chase looked at her with surprise. "Really?" "Don't let it go to your head." Victoria smiled knowingly. "Perfect. That kind of natural chemistry will sell this completely. Now, physical contact guidelines." "Physical contact," Alora and Chase said in unison. "You're engaged. People expect to see affection, hand-holding, casual touches, the occasional kiss for photos." "Kissing?" Alora's voice went up an octave. "Just for show," Chase said quickly. "We don't have to. I mean, only if you're comfortable." "It's fine," Alora said, though her heart was doing something weird and fluttery. "We're adults. We can handle a few fake kisses." "Great," Victoria said, checking her watch. 5 minutes. Let me see your engagement pose." "Our what now?" "Stand together, look lovingly into each other's eyes, and try not to look like you're about to throw up." Chase moved closer to Alora, taking her left hand to display the ring. "Okay, this feels weird." "Super weird," Alora agreed. "You're both thinking too hard," Victoria observed. "Chase, put your arm around her waist." Alora, lean into him slightly. "Pretend you actually like each other." Chase's arm settled around Alora's waist, and she was surprised by how right it felt. He was warm and solid, and he smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Something that was just him. "Better," Victoria said. "Now look at each other like you're sharing a private joke." They turned toward each other, and Alora found herself looking into Chase's dark brown eyes. This close, she could see little flecks of gold in them, and the way they crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled. "What's funny?" Chase asked softly. "I was just thinking," Alora whispered back, "that 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be fake engaged to a man who collects fire extinguishers, I'd have had them committed." "I don't collect them," Chase protested. "I just believe in being prepared." For what? The fire apocalypse? You never know. Despite her nerves, Alora started laughing. Chase joined in, and suddenly they were both giggling like teenagers, standing there in their formal clothes with their arms around each other. "Perfect!" Victoria exclaimed. "That's exactly what we need. Natural, happy, completely in love." "We're not in love," Alora said automatically. "Of course not," Victoria agreed. "But you like each other, which is even better. Real affection is much harder to fake than passion." A sharp knock on the door interrupted them. "Mr. Blackwood, the press is ready." Chase squeezed Alora's hand. "You ready for this?" "Not even a little bit." "Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried about your sanity." They walked toward the door, and Chase paused just before opening it. "One more thing. Whatever happens out there, just remember, we're a team now. It's us against the world. Even if the world includes your terrifying family? Especially then." The press conference was a blur of camera flashes and shouted questions. Alora found herself answering queries about wedding plans, we're thinking spring, her dress preferences, something simple and elegant, and whether they wanted children. We're focused on enjoying being married first. Through it all, Chase never left her side. His hand stayed on the small of her back, or holding hers, or playing with her hair when she got nervous. He answered the trickier questions with easy charm, deflecting anything too personal with humor. "Mr. Blackwood," called a reporter from the Miami Herald, "some people are questioning the timing of this engagement, given your upcoming birthday and your grandfather's will. How do you respond to suggestions that this is a marriage of convenience?" Chase's hand tightened on Alora's, but his smile never wavered. "I'd say those people have obviously never met Alora. Any man would be lucky to marry her, inheritance or no inheritance. The timing is just a happy coincidence." "And Ms. Mitchell," another reporter called, "how do you feel about joining one of Miami's most prominent families?" "Honestly," Alora said, surprised by her own honesty, "it's terrifying, but Chase makes it less scary. He has this way of making everything feel like an adventure instead of a crisis." She felt Chase's surprised look, but she kept her eyes on the reporters. "One last question," called a woman from the back. "What's the secret to your relationship?" Alora and Chase looked at each other, and she saw something shift in his expression, something warmer and more real than their practiced responses. "We make each other laugh," Chase said simply. "Even when everything else is falling apart, we can still make each other laugh." "And he keeps life interesting," Alora added. "I never know what to expect with him, but I always know it won't be boring." After the press conference, they found themselves alone in the elevator, heading back up to the executive floor. "That went well," Chase said finally. "You think?" "You were amazing, natural, funny, completely believable." "So were you." Alora leaned against the elevator wall. "The part about making each other laugh, that was nice." "It was true." "Yeah, it was." The elevator stopped, and as the doors opened, Chase turned to her. "Want to grab dinner? We should probably be seen together in public, for the sake of our fake relationship." "Is that the only reason?" Chase paused, his hand holding the elevator door open. "No," he said quietly. "It's not." "Good," Alora said, stepping out of the elevator. "Because I'm starving, and I want to hear more about this fire truck donation story. It's a really good story." "It better be. I just told the entire city of Miami that you make my life feel like an adventure." "Do I?" Alora looked back at him as they walked down the hallway. "Chase, in the past 3 days, I've watched my car explode, agreed to marry a stranger, and held a press conference about my fake love life. If that's not an adventure, I don't know what is." "And how do you feel about adventures?" "I'm starting to think I might like them more than I expected." Chase grinned. "Good, because something tells me we're just getting started." "This is not what I signed up for," Alora said, staring at the massive headline on the front page of Miami Society magazine. "Blackwood's Billion-Dollar Bride. Inside the romance that's breaking the internet." "It could be worse," Chase said, not looking up from his laptop as he sat across from her in his penthouse kitchen. At least they used a good photo. A good photo? Chase, they somehow got a picture of us in the elevator yesterday. The elevator? How did they even… I may have forgotten to mention that my building has some very dedicated paparazzi. Alora threw the magazine at him. You forgot to mention paparazzi? In my defense, I've been distracted. Planning a fake wedding is surprisingly complicated. It had been a week since their press conference, and their engagement had taken on a life of its own. Their Instagram posts together had millions of likes. Alora and Chase was trending on Twitter. 3 different talk shows had called asking for interviews. Speaking of which, Chase said, finally looking up, we have a problem. Just one? That seems optimistic. My mother wants to meet you. Alora felt the blood drain from her face. Your mother. Victoria Blackwood Sr. And before you ask, yes, she's exactly as terrifying as she sounds. When? Tonight. Family dinner at the estate. 7 o'clock sharp. Tonight? Chase? That's in 6 hours. I need time to prepare, to research, to what? Study for meeting my mother like it's the SATs? Yes, exactly like that. Chase closed his laptop and walked around the counter to where she was sitting. Alora, breathe. She's going to love you. How do you know? Because you're smart, funny, beautiful, and you somehow make me seem like less of a disaster. Trust me, she'll be impressed. And what if she sees through our fake relationship? Then we'll deal with it. Chase sat down beside her. Look, I know this is all happening fast, but we're good at this. Yesterday at lunch, you had 3 different reporters convinced we've been madly in love for months. That's because you kept doing that thing. What thing? That thing where you listen to me talk and actually look interested instead of checking your phone or looking over my shoulder for someone more important. Chase studied her face. Most guys don't do that? Most guys do not do that. Their loss. There it was again, that flutter in her chest that happened every time he said something unexpectedly sweet, which was becoming disturbingly frequent. Chase, she said carefully, are we still talking about our fake relationship? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. What is it? Derek. He's… Shit. What about Derek? Chase showed her the phone. It was a text message with a photo attached, a picture of Alora and Chase from yesterday, but someone had circled Alora's face and written "Gold Digger" in red letters. He sent this to the family group chat, Chase said grimly. Okay, that's actually kind of hilarious, Alora said. Does he think I'm after your money? Are you not? Chase, I've seen your credit card statements. You spent $3,000 last month on what your accountant listed as miscellaneous fire safety equipment. I'm not sure you're the best financial investment. Hey, those fire extinguishers were on sale. My point exactly. Alora took the phone and started typing. What are you doing? Responding. She hit send and handed the phone back. Chase read her message and started laughing. Hi, Derek. So excited to meet the family tonight. I promise I left all my gold-digging equipment at home. XOXO, your new favorite cousin. Too much? Perfect. He's going to hate you. Good. I've never had a nemesis before. This should be fun. At 6:45 p.m., they were driving through the gates of the Blackwood estate in Chase's Tesla. Alora had changed outfits 4 times before settling on a navy blue dress that was elegant, but not trying too hard. Nervous? Chase asked as they pulled up to a house that looked like it belonged in a movie about obscenely wealthy people. Terrified. You? Same. And I've been going to these dinners my whole life. The front door opened before they could knock, revealing a woman in her 60s with perfect silver hair and the kind of posture that suggested military training. She was beautiful in the way that only came from excellent genetics and unlimited access to high-end skincare. Chase, she said, kissing his cheek, you're 3 minutes late. Sorry, Mother, traffic. She turned to Alora with the kind of smile that could either mean welcome to the family or I'm going to destroy you slowly. And you must be Alora. I'm Victoria Blackwood, I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope, Alora said, accepting the offered handshake. Oh, some very interesting things. Come in, let's get you a drink. You're going to need it. The house was exactly what Alora had expected. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and enough priceless art to fund a small country. What she hadn't expected was the family room, where Chase's father was sitting on the floor playing video games with what appeared to be a 10-year-old. "Dad," Chase said, "this is Alora." The man paused his game and stood up, revealing himself to be an older version of Chase with graying temples and laugh lines. "Richard Blackwood," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans before shaking hers. "Don't mind the casual attire. Tommy here convinced me that I needed to understand the appeal of something called Fortnite." "I'm winning," announced Tommy, who had Chase's dark hair and mischievous grin. "Tommy's my nephew," Chase explained. "Derek's son." "The only good thing Derek ever produced," Richard added with a wink. "Richard," Victoria warned, though she was fighting a smile. Dinner was surprisingly relaxed. Victoria asked pointed but fair questions about Alora's work, her family, her plans for the future. Richard told embarrassing stories about Chase's childhood that made Alora laugh until her sides hurt. Tommy showed her his collection of Pokemon cards and asked if she knew how to juggle. "I don't," Alora admitted. "But Chase could teach you." "Really?" Tommy's eyes lit up. "Not with fire," Victoria said firmly. "Mom, I'm not going to teach a 10-year-old fire juggling." "You taught yourself when you were 9, Richard pointed out. "That explains so much," Alora murmured. It wasn't until dessert that Derek finally made his appearance. He was younger than Chase, with the same dark hair but none of the warmth. He looked at Alora like she was something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. "So," he said, settling into his chair. "Alora, tell us about your family's financial situation." The table went dead silent. "Derek," Victoria's voice could have frozen lava. "What?" "I'm just curious about our new family member. Her father's company is in bankruptcy, isn't it?" Alora felt Chase tense beside her, but she put a hand on his arm. "Actually," she said pleasantly, "it's not. Thanks for asking, though. But the loans from our company will be repaid in full, with interest, as agreed." Alora's voice stayed calm and professional. "Mitchell Construction has been in business for 3 generations. We honor our commitments, even when those commitments involve marrying into money." "Derek." Victoria's tone could have cut glass. "It's okay," Alora said, turning to face Derek directly. "I understand your concern. You're worried I'm marrying Chase for his money. Aren't you?" Alora looked at Chase, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You know what, Derek? You're absolutely right. I am marrying Chase for money." The table gasped. Chase's eyebrows shot up. "I'm marrying him for the money he spent on a mariachi band just to make me smile. For the money he spends on ridiculous fire safety equipment because he genuinely wants to keep people safe. For the money he donated to a children's hospital along with his time, just because he could." She reached over and took Chase's hand. "I'm marrying him for all the ways he spends his money that show exactly who he is. Generous, thoughtful, and completely incapable of doing anything halfway." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "But mostly," Alora continued, "I'm marrying him because he makes me laugh. He challenges me to be braver than I thought I could be, and because when I look at him, I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Richard started clapping slowly, followed by Victoria, and finally Tommy, who probably didn't understand what was happening but liked the drama. "Well," Victoria said finally, "I think that settles that." Derek mumbled something about needing to make a phone call and left the dining room. "I like her," Tommy announced to the table. "She's funny." "She is, isn't she?" Chase said, but he was looking at Alora with an expression that made her heart do strange things. After dinner, Chase and Alora walked through the estate gardens while the rest of the family had coffee inside. "So," Chase said finally, "that speech was completely over the top and probably inappropriate for a family dinner?" "Was incredible. And also, how much of it was true?" Alora stopped walking and turned to face him. They were standing under a string of lights that made everything look like a fairy tale. "Which part?" "The part about not being able to imagine being anywhere else." Alora felt her breath catch. "Chase, because I need to tell you something. This fake relationship, it stopped being fake for me about 3 days ago." 3 days ago? When you laughed at my terrible guitar playing and then asked me to teach you anyway. When you held my hand during the press conference, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. When you defended my fire extinguisher collection to a room full of reporters. In my defense, your fire extinguisher collection is very impressive. Alora. Chase stepped closer. "I'm falling for you. Actually, genuinely, completely falling for you. And I know this complicates everything, but I needed you to know." Alora looked up at him, at this beautiful, crazy man who had turned her entire life upside down in the best possible way. "Chase, yeah? It stopped being fake for me too." This time, when he kissed her, it wasn't for the cameras or the press or anyone else. It was just for them, two people who had started with a business arrangement and somehow found something real. When they broke apart, Chase rested his forehead against hers. "So, what do we do now?" "Now," Alora said, "we figure out how to turn a fake engagement into a real relationship without completely losing our minds." "Think we can do it?" "With you? I think we can do anything." From the house, they could hear Tommy calling for them to come see his Pokemon card battle with his grandfather. Normal family chaos, the kind Alora was starting to think she could get used to. "Come on," Chase said, taking her hand. "Let's go be part of the family. The terrifyingly wealthy, slightly dysfunctional family? The best kind." As they walked back toward the house, Alora realized that somewhere between the burning wedding dress and the mariachi band and the press conference, she had stopped pretending to be in love with Chase Blackwood. Now she just had to figure out what to do about it. Alora woke up to 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and a sinking feeling that her perfect world was about to implode. The first call was from Victoria Jr., Chase's lawyer. Her voice was unusually strained. "Alora, we have a problem, a big one. Derek leaked the contract." "What contract?" "Your marriage contract. The real one. It's all over the internet." Alora's blood turned to ice. She grabbed her laptop and opened the first news website she could find. The headline made her stomach drop. "Exposed, the $1 billion fake marriage contract that fooled America." Below it was a photo of their signed agreement, with certain sections highlighted in red. Marriage of convenience. Separate residences, business arrangement only. 1-year term, no romantic expectations. Her phone rang. "Chase. Alora, please tell me you're not reading the news." Too late. Her voice came out as a whisper. "Chase, they have everything. The whole contract, the timeline, even the clause about the settlement money." "I know. I'm looking at it too. How did Derek get this? I thought only we and Victoria had copies." "Derek's been planning this for months. He must have had someone hack into Victoria's files. Or maybe he bribed someone in the law firm. The question is, what do we do now?" Before she could answer, someone started pounding on her apartment door. Through the peephole, she could see a mob of reporters with cameras and microphones. "Chase, there are about 20 reporters outside my apartment. Don't go out there. I'm coming to get you." "How? There are probably reporters at your building too." "I have a plan. Trust me." An hour later, Alora heard a helicopter landing on her apartment building's roof. Because of course Chase owned a helicopter. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Roof, now. Wear something comfortable for flying." She grabbed her purse and snuck up the emergency stairs, avoiding the reporters still camping outside her front door. Chase was waiting by a sleek black helicopter, wearing aviator sunglasses and looking like he'd stepped out of an action movie. "Really?" she shouted over the rotor noise as she climbed in. "A helicopter?" "You said trust you," he shouted back, handing her a headset. This seemed faster than fighting through the media circus. As they lifted off, Alora could see the reporters below scrambling for their cars. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere we can think without cameras watching our every move." 20 minutes later, they landed on a private beach about an hour north of Miami. The helicopter pilot, who appeared to be Chase's regular guy based on their casual conversation, said he'd be back in 2 hours. "You have your own private beach?" Alora asked, as they walked toward a small but elegant beach house. "It belongs to my grandmother. She left it to me when she died. It's the one place the family never bothered to put security cameras or tracking devices." "Your family tracks you?" "Billionaire problems?" Chase said with a bitter laugh. "Privacy is a luxury we can't afford." Inside the beach house, away from helicopters and reporters and the chaos of their imploding fake marriage, they finally had a moment to process what had happened. "Okay," Alora said, sitting on the couch while Chase paced. "Let's think about this rationally. So what if people know our marriage was fake? It's not illegal to have a marriage of convenience." "It's not about legal," Chase said. "It's about my grandfather's will. The marriage requirement specifically states that it has to be genuine romantic love, not a business arrangement. How could they possibly prove—" Alora stopped. "Oh, yeah. The contract Derek leaked basically proves our marriage wouldn't qualify under the will, which means even if we go through with the wedding, I don't get the inheritance. And Derek gets everything. Derek gets everything." Alora felt like the walls were closing in. "What about my father's company? The loan forgiveness was tied to our marriage. That was through a separate Blackwood subsidiary that Derek will control if he gets the inheritance. He can call in the loan whenever he wants. So we're back where we started, except now the whole world knows we're frauds." Chase stopped pacing and looked at her. "Alora, I am so sorry. This is all my fault. I never should have gotten you involved in my family's dysfunction." "Don't." Alora stood up. "Don't you dare apologize for this. We both made this choice. But I'm the one who—" "Chase." She grabbed his hands. 3 weeks ago, I was working 60-hour weeks at a failing company, going on terrible dates with men who treated me like background noise, and convinced that my life was just going to be an endless series of disappointments. Then you showed up with your ridiculous fire juggling and your mariachi bands and your completely insane proposals, and suddenly everything was different. Different how? I started laughing again. I started taking risks. I remembered what it felt like to be excited about something. She squeezed his hands. "Even if this all falls apart, even if we lose everything, I don't regret a single moment of it." Chase stared at her. "How are you not furious with me?" "Because I love you, you impossible man." The words hung in the air between them. Alora realized she'd never actually said it out loud before, and from the look on Chase's face, neither had he. "You love me?" "I love you. I love your dramatic gestures and your safety equipment obsession and the way you listen when I talk. I love that you made me brave enough to tell Derek off at dinner. I love that you have a helicopter but also know how to change a tire. I love that you—" Chase kissed her, cutting off her rambling declaration. This kiss was different from all their others, desperate, real, full of everything they couldn't say. When they broke apart, Chase rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too. More than I knew was possible. More than I thought I was capable of. So what do we do now?" Chase was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean. "I have an idea. It's completely crazy, probably won't work, and will require us to be more honest than either of us has ever been in our entire lives. I'm listening. We tell the truth. All of it. We hold a press conference, admit that yes, our engagement started as a business arrangement, but explain how it became real. We tell our story, the real story. You think people will believe us?" I think people want to believe in love stories, even messy ones, especially messy ones. Alora considered this. And if they don't? If Derek still gets the inheritance and your family disowns you and my father loses the company? Then we figure it out. Together. We start over. Build something new. I've got some money saved. You've got incredible business skills. We could start our own construction company. Mitchell Blackwood Construction. You'd give up your inheritance for me? Alora, the inheritance was always about proving something to my grandfather, to my family, to myself. But I don't need to prove anything anymore. You make me want to be the kind of man who deserves you, inheritance or no inheritance. And what if I said I'd rather fight for what's ours? Then I'd say you're the most amazing woman I've ever met. And Derek Blackwood has no idea what he's up against. Alora grinned. Good answer. Because I have an idea too. What kind of idea? The kind that involves us taking control of our own narrative instead of letting Derek write it for us. Chase's eyes lit up with the same mischievous gleam she'd seen when he was juggling fire outside her building. I'm listening. What if we don't just tell our story? What if we prove it? How? By showing everyone exactly how we fell in love. The real moments, the real feelings, all the things that weren't in that contract. Like what? Like the fact that you spent 3 hours teaching me to juggle tennis balls because I mentioned wanting to learn. Like how you always order extra breadsticks at restaurants because you know I love them. Like how you hold my hand during scary movies even though we both know they're terrible. You want to air our private moments to the entire world? I want to show them that what we have is real, that it started as business but became something beautiful. Alora took his hands again. Chase. We've been so focused on convincing everyone else that we forgot to convince ourselves. But we don't have to convince ourselves anymore, do we? No, we don't. Then let's stop being afraid of what other people think and start fighting for what we want. Chase pulled her closer. What do we want? Each other. Your inheritance because you deserve it and because you'll do amazing things with it. My father's company because it's his legacy and our future. And maybe... She hesitated. Maybe what? Maybe a real wedding. Not for show, not for business, but because we actually want to spend our lives together. Alora Mitchell, Chase said, his voice soft with wonder. Are you proposing to me? I'm proposing that we stop letting other people write our story and start writing it ourselves. In that case, Chase said, dropping to one knee right there on the beach house floor. Alora Mitchell, will you marry me? Not for business, not for contracts, not for anyone else, but because I love you and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. But only if you promise to keep the fire juggling to a minimum during the ceremony. Deal, but I'm keeping the mariachi band. I wouldn't have it any other way. As the sun set over the ocean and the helicopter returned to take them back to face whatever chaos waited in Miami, Alora realized that sometimes the best adventures began when everything fell apart. Because that's when you discovered what was really worth fighting for. You want to do what? Victoria Jr. stared at them like they'd announced plans to colonize Mars. A live wedding, Alora repeated, sitting in Chase's penthouse the next morning, surrounded by laptops, phones, and enough coffee to fuel a small army. On national television, we tell our whole story, the real story, and then we get married for real, live on air. In front of millions of people, Chase added helpfully. Including Derek, who will be watching and expecting us to fail, Alora continued. This is either the most romantic thing I've ever heard, Victoria said slowly, or the most insane. Why not both? Chase grinned. They'd been planning since dawn. After their helicopter ride back to Miami the night before, they'd found Chase's penthouse surrounded by reporters and Derek holding an impromptu press conference on the sidewalk below, explaining how he'd exposed the fraud to protect the family honor. The beauty of it, Alora explained, is that we control the narrative. We invite the world to watch us prove our love is real. And if you can't prove it? Victoria asked. Then we lose everything spectacularly, but at least we'll have tried, Chase said. Plus, the ratings will be incredible. Victoria's phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then hung up with a smile. That was NBC. They're interested. Already? Apparently your story broke the internet. Fake to real is trending worldwide. Everyone wants to know what happens next. So we give them the best love story ever told, Alora said. With one tiny problem, Victoria pointed out. You need a venue, a minister, flowers, music, food for guests, and about 1,000 other details. Most people plan weddings for months. You have, she checked her watch, 18 hours. Challenge accepted, Chase said, already reaching for his phone. Who are you calling? Everyone. The next 18 hours were a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Chase called in every favor he'd ever accumulated, while Alora coordinated with the precision of a military general. By 6 p.m., they had somehow pulled together what could only be described as a miracle. The venue, Bayfront Park, with the Miami skyline as a backdrop. Chase had gotten permission from the mayor. Apparently they'd gone to college together. The flowers. Every florist in Miami had contributed something, creating a garden that looked like it had been touched by magic. The music. A full orchestra, plus the mariachi band from their first meeting, because some traditions were worth keeping. The food. Contributions from 12 different restaurants, creating a feast that could feed the 1,000 guests who'd somehow made it onto the list. The dress. Alora's something borrowed from Victoria Sr., something blue from Chase's grandmother's jewelry collection, something new rushed from a designer who'd worked through the night, and something old, her grandmother's wedding ring, which her father had driven from Orlando to deliver. You clean up nice, Chase said when he saw her in the bridal suite. He was wearing a classic black tuxedo and looked like he'd stepped out of a fairy tale. You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, Alora replied, but she was smiling. Since when do we follow traditional rules? Good point. Through the window, they could see the setup outside. NBC had brought in a full production crew. The guest list included Chase's family. Even Derek had shown up, probably hoping to witness their public humiliation. Alora's extended family who'd flown in from all over the country, and about half of Miami's social elite. Ready? Chase asked, taking her hands. For the wedding or for potentially destroying our lives on national television? Both. Then yes, I'm ready. The ceremony began at sunset, with the Miami skyline glowing golden behind them. The minister was someone Chase had found at the last minute, a woman who specialized in non-traditional unions and had agreed to let them write their own vows. As Alora walked down the aisle to Here Comes the Sun, played by the orchestra, Chase's choice, she could see the cameras capturing every moment. But for once, she wasn't thinking about the audience. She was only thinking about the man waiting for her at the altar, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Ladies and gentlemen, the minister began when Alora reached the altar. We're gathered here today for what might be the most unusual wedding in television history. Chase and Alora have asked to share their story with you before they exchange vows. Chase stepped forward first, speaking into the wireless microphone clipped to his lapel. 3 weeks ago, he began, I was a man who thought love was just another business transaction. I thought I could arrange a marriage like I'd arrange a construction contract, neat, tidy, with clear terms and a defined end date. The crowd laughed softly. I was an idiot, Chase continued, because I didn't account for the fact that Alora Mitchell is impossible to categorize, impossible to predict, and absolutely impossible not to fall in love with. He turned to face her. You want the truth about our relationship? Yes. It started as a business arrangement, but it became real the moment you laughed at my terrible guitar playing and asked me to teach you anyway. It became real when you defended my fire extinguisher collection to a room full of reporters. It became real when you looked Derek in the eye and told him exactly why you were marrying me. The camera zoomed in as Alora stepped forward. I used to think that love was supposed to be safe, she said. Predictable. something that fit neatly into the life I'd planned for myself. Then Chase showed up and set everything on fire, sometimes literally. More laughter from the crowd. He taught me that the best things in life aren't safe, they're adventures. And I'd rather have 1 year of adventures with Chase than a lifetime of safety with anyone else. She looked directly into the camera. So yes, Derek, you were right. Our engagement was fake, but our love isn't. And if you think we're going to let you destroy what we've built together, you clearly don't know us very well. In the crowd, Derek shifted uncomfortably as the cameras found him. Chase, Alora continued, turning back to her groom, you asked me once what I wanted. I want you. I want your dramatic gestures and your impossible optimism and your complete inability to do anything halfway. I want to build a life with you that's just as unexpected and wonderful as everything that brought us here. Alora, Chase said, his voice thick with emotion, you saved me, not from bankruptcy or family expectations or any of that. You saved me from a life where I was just playing a part instead of living it. You made me real. The minister stepped forward. Do you, Chase, take Alora to be your wife? Not for business, not for contracts, but because you choose her every day for the rest of your life? I do, Chase said, his eyes never leaving Alora's face. And do you, Alora, take Chase to be your husband? Not for security, not for convenience, but because you choose him every day for the rest of your life? I do, Alora said, and meant it more than she'd ever meant anything. Then by the power vested in me by the state of Florida and the internet, the minister said with a grin, I pronounce you husband and wife. Chase, you may kiss your bride. Chase cupped Alora's face in his hands and kissed her as the sun set behind them. The orchestra played, and 1,000 people cheered. It was dramatic and public and completely over the top. It was perfect. As they broke apart, Chase whispered, So, Mrs. Blackwood, any regrets? Just one, Alora whispered back. What's that? That we didn't do this sooner. The reception was everything a wedding should be, chaotic, joyful, and full of people who loved them. Chase's father gave a toast about how proud he was of his son for finally finding someone who could keep up with him. Alora's father gave a toast about gaining a son who was crazy enough to deserve his daughter. Even Victoria Sr. got emotional during her toast, admitting that she'd never seen Chase happier. Derek left early, but not before the cameras caught him congratulating them through gritted teeth. At midnight, as the last of the guests were leaving and the television crew was packing up their equipment, Alora found herself alone with Chase on the dance floor, swaying to music that existed only in their heads. So, she said, what happens now? Now we go on our honeymoon. I booked us a cabin in Colorado. No cameras, no reporters, no family drama. Just us and a fireplace and enough books to last a month. Sounds perfect, but what about your inheritance? Chase smiled. Victoria called an hour ago. Apparently, our wedding broke every viewing record in NBC history. The public response has been so overwhelmingly positive that Derek withdrew his challenge to my grandfather's will. Something about respecting the family's wishes and recognizing true love when he sees it. Really? Really? Plus, I think he's afraid of you now. Good. He should be. And your father's company? Officially debt-free as of tomorrow morning. Plus, Victoria Sr. offered us a partnership deal, Mitchell Blackwood Construction, just like we talked about. We're really going to have it all, aren't we? Looks like it. Alora leaned back to look at her husband. Chase? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to juggle fire outside my building. For trusting me enough to tell me the truth. For loving me enough to risk everything. Thank you for being brave enough to say yes, for trusting me enough to take the biggest risk of your life, for loving me enough to marry me twice. Twice? Once for business, Chase said, spinning her around the empty dance floor, and once for love. And which one counts? Both, because they led us here. As they danced under the stars with the Miami skyline twinkling around them, Alora realized that sometimes the best love stories were the ones that started with the most impossible circumstances. Because those were the stories that proved love really could conquer anything, even mariachi bands and fire juggling and fake marriage contracts, especially those. The end.